morning, everyone. It is Monday, December 12th, inching closer and closer to the end of the school year and a happy finals week. Dr. Bray, go ahead and take it away with our COVID update.
Good morning, Danny. We continue to sort of hold still. Cases are increasing, but not at a fast rate, nothing like we saw in 2021. Vaccinations continue to sort of hold steady. That third booster, or the latest booster that was released, is still sort of not taking off in the population. Partly we see that when case counts go up, that's when we start to see people getting vaccinated. And since we're not sitting in a spike like we were with Omicron this time last year, we're not seeing that spike in vaccine uptake. I will say one of the things that you're hearing more and more about in the news is this idea of a triple-demic, which is not an official term, but it's this idea that we have RSV, flu, and COVID circulating in the population at the same time. Now, unlike COVID, RSV and flu are diseases that we've seen seasonally for most of our lifetimes. We've had flu and RSV out there. RSV, if you're a parent, you know that it's one of those diseases that almost every kid gets when they're within the first 2 or 3 years of life. Your child gets RSV, and then we begin to develop a resistance to it over life. One of the challenges that we have with RSV, flu, and COVID circulating is, they all transmit much the same way. They transmit by droplets. So you touch something or someone who's contaminated, you touch your face, you've got a very good chance of catching either COVID, flu, or RSV. But the plus side is that we can prevent the spread the same way, right? So we're careful about who we hang out with. We stay home when we're sick. We wash our hands. We're careful about, sort of touching, hugging, etc., and then rubbing our eyes or rubbing our nose or something like that. The data do show that for the first time in months, flu outpaced COVID symptoms coming into the ER. So this was sort of towards the end of November, beginning of December. Back in September is when we saw this tick sort of switch, right? So COVID had been sort of the big player in all of our ERs. That was the respiratory illness we were seeing. We're now starting to see influenza-like illness as opposed to COVID-like illness showing up in the ER at a greater prevalence, about twice as high, actually. The latest data from Dallas County show that it was about 8% of ER visits. COVID was about 4% of ER visits. Now, COVID-like illness, so coming in complaining of those symptoms. So the idea of a triple-demic is a bit of a, it's a bit of a media tactic, but it is something we are paying attention to.
Thank you, Dr. Bray. And with that language, right, is there anything, I guess, other that we should be concerned about that we aren't already concerned about, right? Wear a mask if you're sick, right? Anything like
That's right.
that. But is there any kind of crazy cases of getting 2 or 3 of them at the same time, or just kind of anything more that we should worry about during this winter season that we hadn't in the past?
Yeah, so from a clinical standpoint, Danny, most folks, what most doctors will tell you is when you come in with these respiratory symptoms, we're going to treat you pretty much the same way. Unless it's a clear case of COVID and it's early enough, and we know for a fact that we can treat it with some of the antiviral treatments, much like we do with Tamiflu. If we know for a fact it's flu and we catch it at the right time, we can give you Tamiflu, and that cuts down on the severity of your symptoms. Outside of those sort of windows, the treatment is pretty much the same, and more importantly, the isolation and stay the way we cut down on transmission is the same. So from a prevention standpoint, if you don't feel well, don't go out, right? And I think one of the things where we're better off now since COVID than we were beforehand is we were always sort of conditioned to fight our way through that cough, fight your way through that cold. Now we have a sensitivity to what that might do to other people, right? And so I know the university's done a much better job about being about encouraging people to stay home, to take a sick day, to miss class. We'll figure out how to catch you up. It's better than getting everybody sick.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Dr. Bray.
Thanks, Danny.